Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatimah, Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of outstanding personal relationships. And hold tight, want to share something with you very quickly. Peace. It's Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of outstanding personal relationships. I'm going live on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to be doing my Quintessential Queens for this Thursday morning for you guys, evening for me. And we're going to be discussing how to make the simple math of making your marriage outstanding. So hold tight. You'll see me look down at my laptop, look up at you as well. And we're going to be starting right now. Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatimah. Once again, Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of outstanding personal relationships. For those of you that are new, this is the next installment of Quintessential Queens with none other than myself. And I'm going to be discussing, we're going to keep this conversation going, as I promised last week, on the simple math of making your marriage outstanding. Because who wants a mediocre marriage? Raise your hands. I don't think anybody is going to be doing that. So off we go. Let's get into it. I like to have these types of lives and this type of content because personally I've been asked these questions a multitude of times, countless times. Before I get into it though, let me know where you all are from. For those of you that are Muslim, Ramadan Mubarak. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be accepting of your fast and anything that you do in regards to worship or ibadah for this blessed month. Let me know where you're chiming in from. How you guys doing? Are you excited to receive this information? Just let me know down in the comments. If you do have a question, please put a question mark in front of your question so that I can easily identify them. Shout out to IG, they're behind the scenes with me as well. That's our other. And if you don't know our IG, it's Outstanding Relationships. It is not Outstanding Personal Relationships. So with all of that being out of the way, make sure you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Again, in the comment section, let me know where you're at. And also, I will be having a little bit after this particular live, I'll be hosting another live webinar for this week on how to share your husband without destroying your marriage. And specifically, we're speaking of polygyny, which is the practice of a man that is married to more than one wife. So yes, thumbs up from IG. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm going to very quickly, walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from the UK. Great stuff. Chicago, my neck of the woods. Glad to have you all in here. So let's get started. So for Quintessential Queens, we are going to be, or I'm going to be discussing the simple math of making your marriage outstanding. Again, who wants a mediocre marriage? I don't think anybody wants that. Arizona, we see you. Thanks for chiming in. A few things I want to touch on very specifically, and this is more of a personal part of my own story. I've been asked a multitude of times, how did I overcome and how did I get through the tough days? And that will be more so in my live webinar. So make sure you guys head on over to that after this Quintessential Queens live for this Thursday. I had a live Quintessential Queens last week, and I hosted a webinar last week as well. Same topic. It's really, really awesome stuff. It's important, it's impactful, it's powerful. And we want to make sure, again, we keep this conversation going because we know that people don't like talking about polygyny. And those of us that do, that need this information, it can be a little hostile at times with those that want to meet us with judgment and have so much to say about something that they don't know a lot about. And they might just have a feeling in their heart that, you know what, it's not going to work. It's not what I'm used to, so I don't want to hear it. So that's great. They have every right not to listen to me. So head on over to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/sharing to register for that free webinar that will be happening in under an hour, inshallah, God willing. Okay. Personally, I've been asked, how did you overcome, or how did you get to a place that is healthy within your marriage? There's some points that I'm going to be sharing. I'll be looking at you all, I'll be looking down at my notes as well. So one of the major things, and let's get right into it, is clear communication. And we like to say here at OPR, and we mean it, it's very important, courageous communication. Oftentimes, people that are married don't want to communicate because they feel as though they might be shut down. And sometimes they might have a past history of bringing up certain topics such as polygyny, or just issues that might have been pre-existing in the marriage before polygyny and they weren't dealt with. And as people that are adults, people that are grown, it's best in most cases to grab the bull by the horns. However, these hard conversations that I've spoken of often don't have to be hostile, and it's best that they're not hostile. Do you have to have a hard conversation? No, you don't. But you also don't have to practice polygyny or monogamy, for that matter, in a healthy fashion either. It's difficult to want to work on a marriage when the other participant is not willing to do the work. The success of our marriages relies solely on the people that are married. Now, for clarification, I am not married to my co-wife. Okay. I'm monogamously married to Coach Nazir. She is also monogamously married to Coach Nazir. So the work of the marriages happen with the individual couples that are in those specific marriages. So one of the ways let's talk about practicing clear and courageous communication. One of the ways to start off a conversation that is difficult, that is even easy, because all the conversations don't have to be hard. They don't have to. However, one of the things to lead with is thanking one's spouse for their time, because these conversations should happen at the appropriate time, not the drop everything, you need to get in here and talk to me, and you need to get in here and talk to me right now. Because when we lead with that, that's going to end up in a hostile conversation. That conversation will end up in a hostile, very trying and challenging environment, because it's starting off when you're leading with that negativity. It's very difficult to come to some resolve when you lead with hostility. I've not seen someone be in a hostile conversation and it end well. Even if it's where people are not putting their hands on each other. See, we don't have to put our hands on each other to be violent. You can speak violence from your mouth. And that's when people end up getting hit for using words like the N-word, talking about people's mothers, talking about people's dead loved ones, their children. You'll see some go from 0 to 60 very quickly once we start getting into those specific areas, because they are touchy, can be painful. We don't know somebody else's trauma. We don't know how in love someone else is with their loved one. We don't know how they measure disrespect. We have to be very, very careful with that. So offering a thank you for your spouse's time, leading with respect, leading with logic and facts and not assumptions, is something that is embraced. I don't know too many people that don't embrace those things. If they don't want to embrace facts of the matter and want to lead with assumptions, then we got to kind of reevaluate the situation to see what's going on with that individual specifically. I don't know too many people that are comfortable with sitting in an assumption, being okay with that, and they feel really, really great at the end of that. I've never led with an assumption that I felt good about. Never. When I led with facts, and when I addressed the facts, and I operated in logic and respect, I always had some of the best conversations with any one person, especially when I love them. Especially when I love them, because I want to find out what the solution is. And you find that out if you're starting with violence from your mouth. The next thing that's very important is, when we have these conversations, is to understand, this is probably really heavy for some people. It was heavy for me. It was understanding that in polygyny specifically, that embracing change and knowing that my relationship with my spouse was going to change and it wasn't going to be like it was before. Now, some wives might take that as me saying, oh, it's going to be trash. Because once you share your spouse, your marriage is already destroyed, somebody said. And maybe they weren't um, educated enough. And I'll get into that within the webinar that I'll be hosting shortly. So let's get back to this. Understanding that my relationship was going to change, but it did not have to be destroyed. It did not have to be devalued, diminished, destructive, okay, disrespectful. So what if it is to stretch me and I'm preventing that from happening because I don't want to step out of the way of my own ego and let someone else tell me the perspective that they have or what, now this is heavy, their experience of me has been thus far. Because maybe it won't match mine. And that's okay. Because I would like to know how my loved ones have experienced me. And I would like to share respectfully how I've experienced them. And maybe they can offer some encouragement or some truth and go, this is what it is. I'll give you an example. Polygyny may sound like I'm being replaced, I'm being removed, I'm being abandoned. To some wives, not all of them. I don't like generalizations. To some wives. It's what it sounded like to me. Okay. Now, and I was trying to find the reasoning behind it because I'm thinking in my mind, no arrogance. I'm not leading it with arrogance. I'm just saying that I was very purposeful about being a woman that was married and I like to place honor on it. So I'm like, I'm a catch. It's a problem. What is the problem? Because sometimes it feels like, what did I do wrong? When no one said I did anything wrong or I was deficient in any way. These are things that came cascading down onto me because I was raised a certain way and there were certain norms that I had embraced. And I said, this is allowed in my culture as a practicing Muslim. But growing up, it was something very foreign to me. So I didn't have an issue with polygyny. I just didn't understand how it should feel for me in a healthy way. And the self-talk that I was giving myself was negative. And then I started replacing toxic questions with healthy questions. Instead of saying, I don't know how he's going to do this. I don't know how this is going to work. I start saying, what if it does work? What if he's so good? Or what if he learned so much? Or what if he's so consistent and purposeful and compassionate and such a leader that it does work? Because his track record of leadership has been great thus far. So why would he decide at this pivotal moment to drop that now? Now, that doesn't mean mistakes aren't made. That doesn't mean you're still, you got everything figured out as a man, you know, as a spouse, as a father, as a son, right? As a sibling. It means you have a learning curve and you're still trying to figure some things out. And we're not going to act like it's all laid out here and everybody was talking about polygyny at this time. This was 13 years ago. So they definitely were not talking about polygyny. And some people are still getting used to it. And that's okay. It's a sign of the times. And I'm a firm believer that it is. So I had to understand and get the understanding that my relationship was going to look different because my husband was being stretched in a different way. He was going to move differently. He was going to communicate with me differently. He was going to experience things in his life specifically that were outside of me. Okay. He couldn't see me. Oh, you don't get to see him when you want to. He doesn't get to see me when he wants to all the time. All right. That's powerful. It's not the same two-way street, but we're on the same street. We're on the same road. Okay. Heading in different directions. That's okay. But I had to understand that as he changed and evolved, And as I changed and evolved, so would the marriage. So we're not this 19 and 20-year-old that we were back then. And now we're older, wiser, we have more knowledge, we have more understanding, we're leading with a different purpose because things change. Life changes. Life is not meant to stay the same. We don't stay the same. People say, I'm the same up here, but you might have been that way when you were 19 and did not experience any growth. Your body's changed. Different things are going on, your children, whatever the case may be. But it's up to us to embrace it and say, okay, what do I do with it now? What do I do with the change now? See, I wanted to win in polygyny. I wanted my husband to win in polygyny. For all my hurt, for all my pain, for all my anguish, for all the growing that I needed to do, I wanted him to win. I've always wanted him to win. I didn't know what that was going to look like for me, but I had to embrace the fact that once he was a winner in polygyny, he was going to make sure everybody's winning. We always won. Even in monogamy, we were winning. There's honor placed. And when there's honor, I love when people sit up and they say, you're dishonored. I'm dishonored. I've been dishonored. I'm a wife. And I have a husband and I have a co-wife. And I have children. And I lead my life with purpose and humility. Because I still have stuff I need to learn. So I'm not going to act like being a wife in polygyny is dishonorable because somebody else feels like it is. South Africa. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm not going to diminish myself because somebody else feels as though I should. So one of the people that needs to know that I'm celebrating my marriage is my spouse. So understanding that and coming to the conclusion that and coming to the compromise that this is going to change. But we get to steer how it changes and say, okay, this is what's before us. How do you feel about it? Instead of waiting for our spouse to say, well, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about polygyny? Maybe ask them how they feel about it. I remember I asked Coach Nazir something, and I was stepping outside of the wife label or the hat that I wear. And I showed up as a friend, and I didn't even know I was doing that at the time. And he was getting ready to leave. And I stopped him, and he was in the doorway of our bedroom. And I stopped him and I asked him, was he happy? Not like, are you happy now? It wasn't like that, right? It was, I said, but are you happy? And he looked around and he said, yes. Now, I knew because I can connect the dots. I'm pretty smart. I can connect the dots when I want to, right? I knew that looking back on it, that day specifically was a challenging day for him because I know what I know now, and I didn't know that then, you know, and I don't even know if he knows I know, but I do. And I said, with all of that was going on with him on that specific day, he said, I'm happy. And so for me, I didn't have hatred in my heart. I wasn't hating him. I didn't dislike his answer. I applauded it because I said, oh, he's being honest. That's an honest answer to say, you know what? Happy, Ramadan Mubarak. He's happy. Because I had to think about how many happy days had he had. If some of you know his story, and you can go, oof. He was the one, as he says, that was told by the time you're a specific age, you'll be either locked up and dead or dead. Because before Islam, that was the life he was kind of leading. He was that guy. So, alhamdulillah, I'm so proud of him. And if I've been here a long time, you guys, so I've seen so much growth in everything that he's been through. If I can step outside of being his wife and just look at what he's been through in his life, and he's young. I know people think that they might think otherwise, mainly our children. Shout out to them. I love them to death, but they crack me up. And it's funny because they're not our age. So, when you're not your parents' age, they seem, our parents are old. But I digress. to look back on so many tragedies and challenges he's had specifically, and I've witnessed and been there for much of it. And whatever I don't know, he has every right to keep to himself. He has every right to go to his grave with, and it's not for me to deal in, and that's okay, and I'm okay with that because I trust him with it. But I can look at the growth and go, woof, he's been through a lot of stuff, and look at him shining on the other side. Look at the triumph and the challenges and the tragedies and the life lessons have been placed before him and us all, so that we can build upon them and not hyper focus on the things that we can't change. I knew I could change me. I could invite him to my evolution and say, this is who I want to be, because my goal was to be happy. I noticed it on a lot of studies when they ask people that are married, what do they want? I want trust. I want connection. I want money. I want children. I want to be left alone. I want those things, but rarely do people say happy. I want to be happy. And I found that to be interesting because my goal was to be happy in polygyny and have a purpose that could propel me forward in the ways that I was in monogamy. I live my life with purpose every day in monogamy. And I said, so why should polygyny stop me now? Because it's not here to stop me. The word polygyny can't harm me or do anything to me and rattle chains and bang on sticks, But some people would say, no, it stopped me. It destroyed my marriage. It did all these types of things like that. And I'm here to tell you, it is a lot to do with what we say to ourselves and about our marriages. It's empowering. When I tell myself I can do something, watch me do it. Now, I'll be praying the whole time. I'll be doing all these different things the whole time. So it's not just of me to just, yes, I have this and I'm Eric. No, I'll always be a forever student, and that feels good. One thing I want to share with you all very quickly, though, make sure that you picked up our polygamy roadmap at polygamyroadmap.com. It's a really awesome resource. And we're going to continue this conversation about understanding, and I'm going to get into working on trust and building trust very, very briefly. So I want to make sure that you guys check that out when you return to this live after I share this with you.
Polygamy what?
Reporting for duty, husband, sir.
Formation. I am Coach Nazir.
I'm his wife, Coach Fatimah.
And I am Coach Nyla. I am also his wife.
And if you think this is how polygamy actually works, you sadly mistaken. Nevertheless, we're the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships and authors of Let's Talk Polygamy. But I want to talk to you men specifically about the polygamy roadmap, because that's not how it works. Hilarious. I know you were laughing. I know I was just doing it, right? But that's not how it works. So let me talk to the men, kind of share with them what's in the polygamy roadmap and how to actually practice it in a healthy way. All right? All right, good stuff. So here's the deal. There are some requisites that men need to really be successful when it comes to practicing polygyny. There's no surprise. There's no mystery that men really want multiple women. All right? It is what it is. It's in our nature to really be polygynous, if you will. The challenge is being able to do it in modern times, because it is an ancient solution. And it's also not for all men, obviously, because there's not twice as many women in the world, first of all, for all men. However, by making yourself more attractive, by making sure you have the 5 requisites down, that makes you that much more attractive. All right. And having your choice of high quality and high value women is totally different than just being average. I'm not telling you to be average. I want you to be outstanding. Average is nothing but the top of the bottom or the bottom of the top. But what I want you to do, go to polygamyroadmap.com. Get access to the men's polygamy roadmap. Yes, we have them for women as well. My wives put that together. But I'm sharing something with you because this comes from somebody who's been practicing it over a decade, over a dozen years already. All right, and we're raising a dozen children. At the beginning, it was a problem. Major problem because we had to do trial and error and try to figure this out and use different skills and going back and forth. And, our year now doesn't look like our year 1, 2, 3, 4, or even year 5. But we had to reverse engineer some things and actually coming across what I consider the secret sauce, if you will, and to be able to put it out there, help empower others. Because there are those who are the creme de la creme. And this is not about cheating or trying to get other people do that all the time. You don't need polygyny for that. Polygyny is for a man's man, for somebody who wants to be twice the man, for somebody who wants to expand, not just talking about building family, not just talking about breaking generational curses, but stepping up to a higher level, accepting that responsibility, the leadership, and the arrows and all the hate that may come with it. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. So if you want to know these requisites and you want to measure yourself, get yourself a report card, you want to become more attractive, then go to polygamyroadmap.com. Put these principles and these things in your life to minimally be more than twice the average. Because again, average is nothing but the top of the bottom and the bottom of the top. I'm Coach Nazir. I help men get their shift together. So if you're ready to get your shift together and step it up, get to the next level, polygamyroadmap.com. I look forward to hearing back from you on what you learned from it. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For those of you that gave salams to me, and Ramadan Mubarak. We are here with myself, Coach Fatimah. Again, for those of you that are new for Quintessential Queens, a simple math of making your marriage outstanding. Now, the next point I'm going to provide for you all is trust. Again, this is a heavy one because I've personally have been asked this question numerous times. How did you trust Coach Nazir after, he got married again and you didn't know he was married again? Was it a simple answer back then? No, because I was still on my growth journey. I still am. But the simple answer is that I wanted to. I absolutely am grown and I wanted to because I had no reason to not trust him. So I had every desire. And people can say, well, yes, you did. Let me tell you something real quick. There is an issue with trust. And we're not going to act like there's not an issue with trust because then you go, okay, what else is going to happen that I'm not told about? What else is going to, you start stacking cards against your spouse and going, yeah, this one was big though. This mess up was big. This not saying was huge. So I don't want to downplay that at all. However, when people ask me a question about my life, about Coach Fatimah, I'm going to answer you honestly. I wanted to trust him again. I wanted to be like, no, I'm not. Dude, this is not, for me specifically, a good look. And it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good after being so trusting for so long to not be able to do that for something that is allowed in my religion. To absolutely allow. So I didn't want to demonize that in any way and go, well, but we did have to have some conversations. We did have to figure some things out and do the work in our marriage and work on ourselves individually. I can't do his personal development work for him. He can't do mine for me. When you work on yourself and you come together with another person that you love very deeply and for decades, you might find a greater love than you had before. That's the beauty of giving myself permission to trust my husband wholeheartedly. That's the beauty of it. It's very liberating. It's very freeing. And it looked good on me and it still does. I love it. Because then I can go, okay, let me talk to him. Let's see what's going on. I just asked him a question before I started Quintessential Queens, before I started this live. I said, I need some clarity, and he gave it to me. That was a 30-second conversation. And we went away from each other feeling fine because it was easy. Because people that love one another want to find resolve. Because I love my father to death, but my father drank like a fish. And I didn't respect the fact that he did that. I knew why. But I couldn't respect a man that did that. He was sitting there actively destroying his body. I mean, a heavy drinker. Functioning heavy. But I couldn't trust him with certain things because he wasn't going to do the work. And I felt bad for him when he passed away because we all saw this coming. And he had got to the point where he didn't care. So I had to understand that. I said, now, if that's what he wants to do, but I can't effectively be a daughter to him when he doesn't love himself enough to see, and that's okay. It had to happen. That's life. I had to lose him the way I did, but I wasn't the only one losing him. And I had to understand that as well. His death did not just affect me, it affected many. So just like with my marriage is not just affecting me. It is absolutely not. It is affecting my spouse. So to give myself permission to say, who are you waiting on permission to trust your husband again? Who's coming? Who's going to offer it? And I had to understand that. So this is really, really important stuff. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Waving at IG. Now, this next one is probably the biggest point that I will make within this Quintessential Queens, the simple math of making your marriage outstanding. Now, these are just some points. I could go on and on about how to make your marriage outstanding, but with a lot of time that I have, these are the core main points that I wanted to share within this specific Quintessential Queens. Learning to forgive our spouses and ourselves is major. That is such a beautiful thing, forgiveness, because of what it will make of us, what it will provide us with. Forgiveness gives us the opportunity to move forward and discover more. Because if I didn't forgive and my husband didn't forgive me, because this ain't, I just sat here and I'm just his punching bag and he can just do whatever and say whatever and nothing has come back. He's faced no backlash at all. He's never had any blowback. He's never had me say anything hurtful. That's not true. So in order to have a marriage that is outstanding, forgiving one another in those areas that need forgiving is amazing. And it's beautiful to offer that to one another. Forgiving and receiving forgiveness. I think for me, receiving the forgiveness of somebody that I've hurt is probably one of the most beautiful gifts I've ever been gifted, because I don't have to. They could say, no, I'm good. We can end this right now. We can do what we need to do, close it out, end it right now. So I love the fact that forgiveness is very freeing. Not forgiveness on a yo-yo. I forgive you today. Tomorrow I'm going to drag you. I'm going to assault your character. I'm going to insult you. I'm going to stonewall you. I'm going to be nice, nasty to you. Absolutely unprovoked. We have to be very mindful. You don't have to, but you don't have to have a successful marriage, specifically in polygyny. But being mindful that forgiveness is a big, bold move. It takes a lot, in some cases, for some people to be forgiving of hurt that was caused. And I love the quote, "We don't burn your bridges up because you don't know when you have to cross back over it." But there's so much power in forgiving one another, because then it allows us to move forward. And if we want to be outstanding, because I didn't see anybody raise their hands and say they want a mediocre marriage, average marriage, because the average marriage in America ends in divorce. The numbers are large because maybe two people had to do that. Maybe ultimate decision had to be made, or they might not have wanted to do the work, or there was just too much pain and too much said and too much done that it was broken, forever broken. But for those that want to do the work, that want to heal, I found out something really interesting about myself specifically. I speak for myself. I found out that my healing was on the other side of forgiveness and the work that I had to do, of course. But I found out that my healing was just waiting on me. And it feels good. it feels good, and to share it with others feels good. And I'll be sharing more about that in my live webinar that I'll be hosting very, very shortly. We are under a little bit over 20 minutes from now. I'll be hosting that live webinar. So make sure you go over to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/sharing to register for that free webinar. So, and have your questions ready. I'll be taking some questions if you have signed up for VIP access. Absolutely. I'll be doing that. And I don't see any questions within this particular live. So, yes, let's do a little quick review. So, communicating clearly and understanding that your relationship will change, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, sometimes we don't want to embrace change because we're afraid of what it may mean, you know, but if we have an agenda for change and we go, okay, let's have this courageous communication. My co-wife always says that, and it's always important to say, then we can move forward and not be a solo thinker. Solo thinkers work on their own. They don't care about anybody else. It's just all about me, 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 me. Learning to forgive. But before that was building trust and giving yourself permission to do so. So these are things that you can implement right away if you make the decision to do that with your spouse. You know, so you have to have a hard conversation. Remember, it doesn't have to be hostile, and make sure it's at the appropriate time, because the last thing somebody wants to do is have a really in-depth, deep conversation and they're about to go out the door to work. Or, you know what I mean? So, or they're about to put the baby down for bed, you know? So it's best to do those at the appropriate time with the willing, because we want to work with the willing. The success of our marriages relies, again, solely on us. So with that being said, I'm going to be wrapping up this week's Quintessential Queens, the simple art of making your marriage outstanding, the simple math. I think about art all the time, you guys. It keeps coming up out my mouth. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Ramadan Mubarak to those of you that are fasting. This is a very special month for Muslims. I won't go all off into it, but we're so excited for Ramadan. We're going to keep our conversations about marriage, and specifically marriage and polygyny, going throughout this month. We got some really exciting things going on. So make sure that you all are tuning in, and also tune in to Poly Tea and Chat with Coach Nyla on Saturdays. And she will also be hosting her amazing webinar on Saturdays as well. So just make sure you're looking at our Facebooks and our social medias for details on that. So with that being said, and we also offer coaching and counseling. So if you want to know more about that, I'm going to share something very quickly with you. But until next week, guys, I hope you picked up some awesome gems from this live. I'll be seeing you shortly if you head on over to my live webinar on how to share your husband without destroying your marriage in polygyny. So I'm going to leave you guys with some little GLC, as we always do. Make sure that you are growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting at a higher level every single day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Isn't it frustrating when you think about your husband that you've had for a long time, or maybe even a short time, and then they finally decide that they want to practice polygyny? Then you go, what am I supposed to do with that once you decide you want to practice polygyny? Am I going to be thrown outside? Are you going to divorce me? What's going to happen to me? You go through all these emotions and all this frustration and trying to figure it out. And then you're on the emotional roller coaster going round and round and round with your own ruminating thoughts. You feel defeated. You feel jealous. You go, what if she's younger? What if she's smarter? What if she's taller? What if she's smaller? What if he likes her more? Those are some of the things that I found extremely frustrating, and I did not know what to do as a wife for so long and a mother. And then I said, well, we can kind of have some fun together alone and all these things like that. But then no, he had this idea of polygyny. So I said, well, where do I fit in? And then I discovered that I had to make a choice. I said, I can either stay in a place of hurt and feeling betrayed and confused and dealing with my own emotions in this new normal that he decided to sign up for. So with that, I said, that's enough. I don't want that anymore for me. So I made a big decision, and that was to make sure that I read the books, healed myself, travel, and uplift my own self-esteem. Because I did that, I also decided to create the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program. I wanted to be a solution, and I wanted to be part of my own solution and help others in the process. I know what it's like going on that emotional roller coaster and not knowing that, okay, this is something that my husband wants to do. He wants to practice polygyny. What can you do? You can only control yourself because, again, you can't control anybody else. So with that, I want to make sure that I offer it to you as well. It's so important to understand that growth has to happen, and growth can't happen if we're stuck in our own comfort zone. So with the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program, I make sure that I equipped others with the same things that I had in those same practices for best results with less legwork. So to learn more about my Nourishing Fulfillment Coaching and Counseling Program, visit me at CoachFatimah.com for details or hit that button below in order to apply. I will see you inside. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.